Good afternoon and welcome to Your Life, Your Way. I'm Kathleen McDermott, and my guest and friend joining me today is such fun. I love her smile, her laugh, and her silver lining attitude always. She is a generous and funny entrepreneur. She is a military veteran, ballroom dancer, and even a science geek. She is also the creator of Closet Play Image. And as an image, wardrobe, and color consultant, think of her as your personal trainer for your personal style. She's going to share a lot with us today and how it all fits in with so many aspects of our life. And I am so excited to say hi, Liz, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for your kind invitation, Kathleen. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you today and your people.
So Liz, I would love to know if you could give us first a little bit of insight as to what brought you into the image consulting field, and then guide us into how that blossomed into Closet Play Image.
Okay, so you could say it all started when I was about 5. Actually, I've always loved style and fashion. Like, I technically say I've been dressing men and women for 50 plus years, if you include Ken and Barbie. And I was obsessed. I don't know. I had one of those Barbie suitcases that it was just like a rectangular. Did you have one of these? You're looking at your face. It was this rectangular. It was a rectangular case. And when you opened it, there was a drawer and some place to hang clothes and a slot for Barbie. And if you turned it on its side, it was the best apartment ever. So I loved that. Like, it was just, I didn't love Barbie herself. Like, I didn't love the shape and the size and everything else because she was blonde and I was not, and it just didn't work for me. But I loved creating things for her. My mom taught me to sew, so that was kind of another step on my path. And I just always loved style and fashion. Like I said, I can blame it on my mom. When I was a girl, we would travel out to see our family in New York, and she would take me into the city every year, and we would go see the windows on Fifth Avenue. It's just a fantabulous adventure, right? Just the visuals just sort of spoke to me in a way, not in the sense of wanting to own those things, but appreciating the beauty of them for just the beauty of them. And fast forward through a life of, working retail in high school and college, and then getting out of college and going, what am I going to do now? And realizing that retail management was not for me, because retail management is about making numbers. It's not about serving customers. Particularly, this was the 1980s, and it was just a very uncomfortable time. And I had what I would now call an integrity disconnect. At the time, I had no idea what it was, but I just knew I had to get out of Dodge. And so I ran off and joined the Navy because they had cute uniforms. No, actually, we had a family history of Navy service. So that seemed to be the branch to join. And so I was in the reserves for 10 plus years, only on active duty for a little bit more than 2. And after that, married and had some children, and we gallivanted around the world. Like you said, every move was an international move. We went from the States, overseas, back overseas, back overseas. And during that time, my husband deployed. So this is sort of pre-internet. I know it's hard to imagine there was a life pre-internet.
Was there ever?
I know, but there really was. It was after the dinosaurs, but before the modern internet. There was this little phase here for hundreds of years. But having a profession was not necessarily an easy thing for a military wife, unless she was like a hairdresser or had some sort of home-based business, because every time you moved, you're looking for a new client base. You're having to recertify someplace that you go. You may not even be able to do that job in the country that you're going to because of licensing, and a lot of things are licensed by state. So it's like, oh, well, I was licensed here. Now I'm here, but I can't get licensed here. So, I homeschooled. We homeschooled our kids, mostly because we wanted them to have some continuity. And we wanted to be able to take advantage of being able to travel when we wanted. And for me, that was a fabulous adventure. not just because we were traveling the world, but because I saw the world and I saw the cultures that we lived in as just giant books to open and read and learn from. I'm a learning geek, lifelong learner, and I wanted our children to have that experience. And we were so fortunate, excuse me, to have had it. And clothing is part of culture. So I would always notice different cultures and the way they dressed around the world. I had a funny experience when we lived in Spain. I was at the shoe repair, and the cobbler asked me where I was from, and I told him, oh, well, I'm an American. And he looked at me, he said, no, you're not an American. And I said, yeah, I really am an American. He's like, oh, no, you're not an American. And I said, well, why? What is an American? He said, you don't look like an American. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, no tienes cara de ópera y zapatos de jogging. You don't have an opera face and jogging shoes. So this was you have to think this is the 1990s. So very heavy makeup and tennis shoes was what a lot of the military wives ran around. And I had mostly a clean face, a very kind of natural, no makeup look, and real shoes on my feet. So I clearly wasn't an American. I must have been a European. So just these kind of little things. Whenever we got back to the States, though, it was time for a career. To really finally put down roots somewhere and try getting myself a career. So I kind of gallivanted about doing a few things, like worked as a bookkeeper because I'd been a tax preparer at one point, and then taught Spanish, which I loved teaching in the classroom. That was absolutely fabulous. And then I got to kind of one of those God moment points where I was hearing the tap on the shoulder, the little voice in the back of my head saying it's time to walk away from this, not understanding why, and saying, arguing with the powers that be, because they'd gotten me where I needed to be. And I didn't really want to leave that because it was great and it was comfortable. It was fun. But I was being asked to step out into something else. And I wasn't sure what that was yet. And then there were some bumpy roads along the way, some health issues with my mother who lives with us. And I ended up having a health issue myself and was recovering very slowly. I was learning how to walk again. And my husband looked at me and said, you need something to keep you busy. And I was like,
busy or keep you out of trouble?
He said busy, but I'm pretty sure he meant out of trouble. I was really struggling. Like I said, I was trying to learn how to walk again, and I'd had some brain issues. I was having a lot of brain fog and struggling to get words, and it was just a really hard time. And I was taking care of my mother. And he said, you really need something to do. And so he's like, why don't you take this class? The reason he suggested I take the class was I had always been helping friends and family members with style and wardrobe and packing for trips and things. And it had always just been part of who I was and what I did. And one night, I think probably 3 or 4 texts came in, and there were people sending me dressing room selfies asking, well, should I get this or should I get this? Which one do you like better? Kind of a thing. And I answered, he finally looked at me and said, you could do that for a living. Why don't you do that for a living? I thought, well, I know how to do it for my friends and family, but I don't know how to do that for somebody I've never met. And he said, well, I bet there's a class out there. I think you should go take a class. And I went and found a training institute for image consultants and got through my training, went out to California for so it was all online. And then there was some workshop training, personal training in person out in California. And we all met out there and took care of that and hung up my shingle the next month. And it's been slow and steady growth ever since then. And it's been fun. It's been hard as all get out. It's been challenging. It's been frustrating. It's been all of those things rolled into one, but most of all, it's just been a blessing.
You touch on something you've touched on a few things actually. Mm-hmm. And your most recent words that you just said, the fact that it was hard, it was challenging. And I find that's one of the excuses that our fear mind, our ego mind comes forth with is, oh, it's too hard, or oh, if it were only that easy or only that simple. How did you work your mind through that hard and challenge, that you didn't quit, that you stuck with it, and you knew, how did you know that you could get through it and survive?
Probably just drawing on getting through so many other things. It's like, okay, I've done hard things before. I've done hard things before. Getting my master's degree while teaching full-time was hard. Moving internationally every 3 years with 3 kids and a husband who was gone most of the time was hard. I think it's drawing on the experiences that you had in the past that have been hard and going, you know what? I did that. I did this. I did that. I don't have to do this tomorrow. All I have to do is one tiny step to move forward toward my goal or whatever it is I want to do today. And it's just one little tiny bite. I don't have to eat the elephant all at once. I just have to cut off one tiny little sliver and eat the elephant that way. And I think we get overwhelmed. You know, we look at it and we want to do it perfectly. And, you know, recovering perfectionist right here, you know, I've got at least 3 badges probably hanging up over there, perfectionism badges. And yeah, I try to get rid of them all the time. I don't know. I think it's drawing on what, okay, I've done hard things. This is not going to kill me. And what's the worst that can happen? If I fail, I fail.
Bingo.
If I fail, I fail. I've learned that it's not a failure if I learn something from it. So did I learn something from it? You know, at the end of every day, what have I learned today? I've learned that I don't like that. Okay. I've learned that sucked. Pardon my language. You know, I learned that X or Y was just a really horrible experience. Okay. Now I know to try and avoid that trap later. Oh, look, I learned that this worked. That was good. Let me do some more of that.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think it's all about the learn. And I'm a lifelong learner. I've always loved to learn. And I think for people who don't enjoy learning, I think that makes it much harder. Because if you can look at it as a learning experience, no matter how well or poorly it goes, I think that opens things up a lot for you. I think it opens up your horizons and your possibilities for expansion and enjoyment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, you also had said, and I'm going to guess that it's along the same line, but there might be a little detour. You've had some life challenges. Life always has a way of throwing these little curves.
Yeah, it does.
Had an illness, an injury, and you've been caring for your mom. It's that ebb and flow of life. There is always an ebb and flow every day to life. Sometimes it's a bigger wave. Sometimes it's calmer. How did you navigate when you were hit with those bigger waves and still trying to stay on track?
When I was in one particularly horrible trough, I ended up going to see a counselor, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Beautiful.
Sat down and talked to her, and she looked at me and she's like, okay, yeah, you are in a really rough patch right now, but this is situational and it doesn't seem to be part of your normal personality, because I am what some people have called brutally optimistic, like bizarrely positive in just an obnoxious kind of way. And it can be a little unpleasant to live with, I have a feeling. You could ask my husband that one. I tend to see silver linings, but I was in a place where there were no more silver linings and I was just really struggling. And she, you know, taught me some exercises and activities to do. And I saw her for a few months. And then she was like, I think you're good. I'm going to send you out the door. And if you, you know, feel like you're getting overwhelmed again in a few months because the wave is big, fine, come on back. But I think it's that perspective. Okay, it's a wave. It's not forever. It's not, yes, it's going to be like this for a week or a month or 6 weeks or 6 months, or maybe even a year, but there will be something else on the other side.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, especially a personal side where I think in our country, I think you probably will admit that there's this fear of mental health.
Oh yeah.
And of reaching out, saying, I need help, I need support. And that needs to change. It really does.
Oh, sure.
Sharing your story, I hope it gives someone else the strength to say, I need help and I'm going to go and get it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no shame in asking for help. As a matter of fact, it's the most courageous thing to do. Like if you just pretend there's no problem and you pretend it's all going to be fine, that's not being strong. That's being foolish and self-delusional. Being strong is facing the truth and saying, yes, I need help and I can't do this on my own.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And
No.
I'm hoping someone takes that away. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about the fun that you have? I mean, Closet Play Image, what is that? I mean, I know what it is, but please share with our listeners.
So Closet Play Image is my business. It is an image, wardrobe, and color consulting business. So if that sounds a little convoluted, it just means that I'm a personal trainer for your personal style.
I always love
It's
that.
about, yeah, or some people think of it as an interior decorator for the exterior view.
Well, I like yours better.
Yeah. It's really about helping you align your personality and your inside with the image you're projecting on the outside. So stylists, so for example, when you think of a stylist, like a magazine stylist, somebody who's creating a look for a magazine or an ad, or possibly dressing you in a store for an occasion, their job is to create the best look for the outside of you, but they're not really taking into account the inside of you. So for me, it's about helping you shine your inside out to the world to see, because when people can see who we are and they can make that connection drives relationship. Relationships build, I mean, if you're in business, relationships build business. Otherwise, relationship is what creates connection with people, or connection creates relationship. It's a cycle.
Yes.
And when people feel like they see you and know you, and there's no disconnect between the inside and the outside, then they feel like they understand you better. And, we're just at a point, you come to a point in your life where you just go, I'm just not interested in playing anybody's games anymore. I just want to be who I am.
Amen.
I just want to be my real me. I just want to show up as me. I don't have the energy for pretending or any. And so what I do is about helping my clients uncover who they really are now. We spend so much time, particularly as women, defined by our relationships. I start out as somebody, I'm this person's daughter, I'm so-and-so's daughter, I'm so-and-so's student, I'm so-and-so's girlfriend, I'm so-and-so's fiance, wife, mother. There's that 20 some odd year phase where you're no longer Kathleen or Liz, you're
somebody else.
Robert's mom and
Yes.
Evan, Aiden, and Graham's mom, right? I mean, and I'm still their mom. Even today, they're like, people are like, oh yeah, you're so-and-so's mom. Yep, I'm Liz, by the way, but there comes a point at which they fly the coop, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get to decide who I am and how I want to show up in the world. I love, who is it? It's Brene Brown. She says, midlife is when the universe taps you on the shoulder and gently whispers in your ear, I'm not blanking around. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I'm not playing games. It's not about that. It's about showing up authentically. And that word makes me uncomfortable because it gets abused in our culture today.
Tell me more.
I think people use the word authentic as an excuse to be their worst selves, particularly on social media.
Oh, I never.
Particularly on social media. I'm just being real. I'm just being authentic. So yeah, I'm just being real. I'm just being authentic. I'm just telling it like it is. No, you're just being a jerk. If that's who you really are, then that's fine. But do you have, really, is that necessary to share? But yeah, I think a lot of people use authenticity as an excuse for not showing up in the way they want and the way that they're striving to be, or even as the way they are. But I mean, yes, we all have darker sides and we all have negativity. And I want to see the whole picture, but I don't want to just see all one side of the other.
I'm so glad you got a whole new perspective.
Yeah, because I think it gets abused. And so I'm very careful about using that word authenticity.
Understood.
Sorry.
No, don't ever. Sorry, the word sorry is going to be another whole podcast episode.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
Connecting, relationships, business were three words that you just discussed.
Yeah.
What if someone isn't an entrepreneur or doesn't go out of the home and go to work, but she's reached that point in life where she's just not comfortable with what she's putting on? I mean, some days you just have days you walk in the closet and you just want to stay in your bathrobe all day
Oh
because it's
yeah.
so daunting.
Yeah, I've had my own midlife closet crisis. I mean, I remember walking into my closet and opening the doors and looking and going, who bought the, I mean, I knew I bought them. It wasn't like I'd had a, a brain like dump. I knew where the clothes had come from, but I thought, I am not that woman. Who is that woman who's wearing these clothes? And they're really not, they just don't feel like me anymore.
And that's a good point. Does that, they don't feel like me anymore? How does all of that relate to a woman's stress level? How does what you do help reduce stress and increase their joy?
Well, and that's, thank you. I love you. Thank you for asking that question. It depends on the woman, but for a lot of us, we feel overwhelmed. Like we feel like there's too much, particularly when we get to a certain point in our life. Now, that could be when your children are young and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I just have too many balls in the air. And I find that for a lot of women, dressing isn't fun. Like it was fun when we were teenagers, or it might have been fun in the past, but it stopped being fun somewhere along the line and it started being a chore and something that I just have to do every day so that I can get out of the house. And even if you're not getting out of the house, showing when you catch yourself, whether that's in the mirror as you walk by or the mirror, of the windows as you see yourself walking past through your living room because you haven't left the house in, 3 months. I'm talking to you, 2020, right?
I hear that.
There are psychological studies that show that what we wear affects how we feel about ourselves. So when we slump around in our jammies all day, we feel slumpy in our jammies all day. But when we put on clothes that signify I'm moving or I'm in action or I have it together to ourselves, then our brain connects that and it puts it to work. There's a reason we put on uniforms. There's a reason we put military people in uniforms and police officers in uniforms. And it's not just for the people looking at them, it's for them as well. There's a fantastic study done back in the UK, and it's also been replicated here in the US, where they put people in white coats. Have I told you about this white coat study before?
Yes. Does sound very
I don't want to go too long. I don't want to.
We're okay.
Okay. So what they did was they put 3 groups of people and they just split the group. First group, they gave the whole cohort a test, a performance kind of test. Okay. Then they gave them the test again. The first group, they just gave the test a second time. No change. Second group, they gave the test and they put them in white coats and they told them it was a doctor's coat. Third group, they put in the same white coats and they told them it was a painter's coat. The first group, no coat, performed statistically the same as they did on the first. The second group that was wearing a doctor's coat performed statistically better than they did the first time. And the third group, who heard it was a painter's coat, did statistically more poorly than they did the first time. So what we wear, we actually internalize, whether we think we do or not. We may say, oh yeah, I work just as well in my jammies as I do in, whatever.
No,
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. I mean, lots of people say they do, but the data doesn't support it. There's multiple levels of data that don't support it.
It's a powerful story. Every time I have heard it, and it amazes me each time, which I don't know why it does, because the mind is a very powerful thing.
It is. And
we are very visual people too. So you're seeing yourself and you're feeling yourself in a different way.
Yes. Yeah. And I knew this actually from a really young age. I always understood that I couldn't take a test if I wasn't wearing shoes on my feet. I know it sounds crazy, but I remember when we were little and we took those Iowa tests every year, the standardized tests you take every year, and they would put us in the carols in the library and everything else. And kids would say, oh, can I take off my shoes? And some kid, and I was like, and I would take off my shoes and I would start feeling like I was starting to get stuck. I put my shoes back on and Because for me, putting on my shoes meant I was at work. Because when you're a child, school is work, right? That's your work.
Very true.
And so it was like, okay, I'm in my uniform, I'm ready to work. And so I had to put my shoes back on in order to take my test. And I know even to this day, even if I'm wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt for work, there will be real shoes on my feet. There's real shoes on my feet right now, even though I'm working at home in jeans.
Well,
Because if I'm not wearing shoes,
I do have my slippers on.
There you go. If I'm not wearing shoes, I'm not at work in my head.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's silly, but that's my cue.
But that helps you. That helps you relate to other women and have them be relatable to you.
Yeah.
And how are you working with women with this in this world that we're in? How are you working with them inside their closet and existing wardrobe?
Well, so some people I'm working with in real life, if they are local and we're careful. And right now, we're sort of scaling back on that. But I've actually been working with women. I haven't worked with any men virtually. That's interesting now that I think about that. But I have been working with women virtually as well. And it's a really different adventure. So when we work in real life, it tends to be, I come to your house, we work for 3 or 4 hours, and then I leave. But I'm actually finding much better results working virtually with clients, because what we do is we break that 4 hours up into 4 1-hour segments over 4 weeks. And so we'll do like one segment, and then you've got a week to practice skills in between.
Okay.
And then we do another segment, we build on that. And then you've got another week to practice not only the first skill, but the second skill. So we're building and scaffolding in a different way. So I'm really enjoying that. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And I've had a couple people tell me that working virtually really works well for them, because it gives them that practice time in between.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun. It's been a new adventure. And whenever it started, whenever in March of 2020, and I just remember thinking, yeah, it was a wave, right? And I thought, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn in like the next 3 weeks. I've got to figure out how to do my whole business online. And I did, and I'm still learning, and it's okay. I didn't have to figure it out all at once. It was like, okay, still learning. But, and I, last year, I what's the word I want to use? I premiered. That's not the word I want to use. But anyway, so I started a style subscription group. So I've been working with a group of women, a small cohort of women. It's 12 women, and we meet every month and we do a master class, and then they have assignments every week, and they show up in a group and we talk about their work. And so it's been a new way to work with a group. And I really love working with small groups like that, because not only do you learn, but you're learning from the other women that you're seeing learn. You're learning yourself, but when you see it working on somebody else or not working on them, it's like, oh, now I get it, in a way often that you don't when you're doing it yourself, because it's much easier to look at other people more objectively than it is to look at yourself.
Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one of those things that I help teach my clients how to do. And it's very hard to learn to look at yourself objectively. It's very challenging. And even image consultants have a hard time doing it. That's why image consultants have image consultants.
Well, like coaches have coaches.
Like coaches have coaches. Exactly. So
it's very
hopefully I'm not calling her every morning, or hopefully I'm not texting her all the time, but I reach out regularly, because it's like, okay, yeah. And it's time, like right now I'm in the middle of a style overhaul. I can feel it, which means there'll probably be a rebrand next year. But it's all good, because we're always changing. I think I had my kind of last overhaul about 4 or 5 years ago, which is, we're changing. You think about that. If we look back, we as humans, I was listening to a podcast on this just the other day. We as humans are really poor at predicting how much we will change in the future.
That's a beautiful point to make.
Really poor. And who wants to, and in light of that, we're really poor at that. But if we ask somebody to look back 10 years, how much have you changed in 10 years? You say, oh, how much are you going to change in the next 10 years? People go, oh, I'm not going to change much. And then you say, how much have you changed in the past 10 years? They're like, oh, I've changed a lot in the past 10 years. So who knows what it's going to look like 10 years from now? Who knows?
No, we don't.
We don't.
Very good
We're making it up as we go along, people.
We say that ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Riding that wave.
Ride that wave. Sometimes we can surf on it. Sometimes we're underneath it. Sometimes the undertow's dragging us out, and it's all good.
I wanted to share a funny story with you. I've had the opportunity, wonderful opportunity and blessing to see and hear Liz in action from time to time. And at one point she was offering her expertise in when you're in business and you're on camera and what to wear and what not to wear and how things interact with the camera. And a few months back, I had I was getting on to a seminar, which was on Zoom. And I had this lovely new blouse and I thought, I'm going to wear my new blouse today. Well, as I had my blouse and sat down and fired up the Zoom and everything, all of a sudden everyone is on camera. I see my blouse riding its own wave.
Oh, I was moving around. Oh, patterns can do that depending on the pattern.
And I immediately went to, oh, Liz told me not to wear anything like this. I should have listened.
I'm so sorry you had to have that happen.
It was so funny. I immediately went to you and thought, yep, she was right. So I turned off my camera and I went and I changed my blouse.
Because it can be nauseating. It's like, I don't know.
It was almost like the blouse was on LSD or something. It was just going crazy. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Certain patterns will do that. Stripes are really bad for that as well. They look fine hanging, but if they're on a body and you're breathing, they're not just breathing, they're doing this whole thing. And I love stripes, but I tend not to wear them on camera because they can do that.
So I'm very aware of that now, but it was, so there are all kinds of little things that Liz is very, very helpful on. Are there any final points that you would like to, and I would ask if you have a final point that can gear towards just coming back to the stress level as to how your closet and what you do in it and what you have in it to wear, what you put on, how does that help with our decreasing stress and increasing joy?
Well, the more choices we have to make every day, the more stress we have in our life. Sure. So when we get the things out that aren't serving us and that don't fit us, that don't serve us, that don't fit our lifestyle, whatever, just whatever that stuff is, when we clear that detritus out of the way and we have whatever, this small section of things that make us look and feel fabulous, then getting dressed becomes not only easy, but becomes much more of a pleasure. I'd love to say it becomes fun, but for some people that never happens. But when we can take that stress level out and you can go, oh yeah, this and this go together, like you can basically dress in the dark and look good, that feeling carries to the inside as well. Like we were talking about how the outside affects the inside. So and some people need lots and lots of choice. Some people need fewer choices. It's really about finding your place, your level. So I'm a fewer choices person because I've got a lot going on in my world. I don't need a ton of choice in a 3-month period. For example, I create myself a seasonal capsule because I don't need a ton of choice in that 3 months. Now I will want some new choices when the weather changes, but for me, and for a lot of people, I find most women have way more in their closet than is making them happy. They look and they go, and it makes you, some of it either makes you feel guilty because it doesn't fit, or you spent good money on it and it's hanging in there. And it's like, oh, let's get rid of the guilt. You don't need guilt staring you in the face when you open your closet door. You don't need regret staring you in the face when you open your closet door. You need your wardrobe to support you and to make your life easier. And make you feel good.
Because that was very nicely said. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's always so much fun talking with you. It really is. You have such beautiful energy and you just are a beautiful soul.
Well, thank you.
I'm
rather fond of you.
How can our listeners reach you if they would like to talk further with you and get more information and have maybe a one-on-one consultation with you?
Sure. The easiest way to find me is on social media. My handle is Closet Play Image, all one word, Closet Play Image, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If they want to find my website, that's a little bit different. That's www.closetplay.biz. Biz rhymes with Liz. So we have all kinds of bright ideas about your style and your wardrobe there. And you can reach out to me through any of the messaging services on those social media platforms, or there's a contact form on my website.
And you also have a really fun newsletter or clip information that comes out. Yes. And I love when you do, what is that? Don't tell me, I know what it is.
Copycat style. Yeah, every month there's one coming up next week. Every month I do a copycat style post where I steal somebody else's style, or actually like 3 styles, and combine them to make something that works for me. And I talk through the steps to help people do that. But yeah, and every month my newsletter, you can sign up for that on the website. You can get on my mailing list. I only send that out, that's once a month. And then sometimes I'll send out something special, or like a link to a video that I've done just for subscribers. So yeah, I do not bomb your in-mail box with,
it's not.
Oh yeah, I am not, I can't stand that. I just unsubscribed to something that was sending me 3 emails a day. I'm like, excuse me, who has time for that?
Yeah, it's just too much. And it's not going to hold my attention, but another day.
Yes.
Liz Klebba, Closet Play Image, and dear friend, it's been such a wonderful pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And I hope anything new comes up, please reach out and we'll have you back again for part 2.
Will do. And thank you so much for the invitation. It's been just a treat to see you. I miss you. I miss you. I'm looking forward to seeing you after you get back from your trip.
We're only 2 different states, but we're not that far away.
No, so we're not.
Together. Liz touched on so many different areas today, and how they all kind of intertwine with each other is, I find personally fascinating. And in any business, no matter what type of work we're doing, there are always times, or even in life, it doesn't have to be in business, that sometimes we have trouble staying on track. And I so appreciate Liz being open and saying that she was not afraid to reach out when she felt she needed a little support or a little help. And that is something that we really need to focus on, as I feel there is nothing wrong in saying I need some help, I need some support. So thank you, Liz, for sharing that. And it's amazing that what we wear, how we dress, how we move, it really can affect how we feel. The outside affects the inside, vice versa. And also she made a point that we don't need to feel guilt and regret in our closet. And, we wouldn't think that our closet and dressing can really be a source of stress, but if we stop and think about it, it absolutely can. And when she asked, is dressing fun for you? How do you feel when you're in your closet? If you have any of these angsts, if maybe your tastes are changing, you've grown, you've changed, and it can happen quickly. I'm not the same I was a year ago, and I already walk into my closet and say, ooh. But reach out to Liz. Please don't hesitate to reach out and just have a conversation with her and find out a little bit more about what she does and how she might be able to help you have a better relationship, a happier relationship with your closet. You will find her contact information in the show notes. Please feel free to share this episode with family and friends. And I would love, if you find it in your heart, to Spotify, Apple, Google, if you could give a review and 5-star, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. I wish you a fabulous day. Peace and blessings.